3-year-old vanished from a locked apartment in under 10 minutes. Tonight you'll see why 17 years of evidence still leads nowhere, why the prime suspect refuses to confess, and the one detail investigators only admitted in 2024 that changes everything. On the night of May 3, 2007, in the quiet Portuguese resort town of Praia da Luz, a 3-year-old British girl named Madeleine Beth McCann was put to bed inside apartment 5A of the Ocean Club Resort. Her parents, Kate and Jerry McCann, both doctors, were dining with 7 friends at a tapas restaurant less than 50 meters away. Madeleine slept beside her 2-year-old twin siblings, Sean and Amelie. The patio doors were unlocked. The shutters on the bedroom window faced a quiet street, and at some point between 9 and 10 p.m., Madeleine McCann disappeared from that room and was never seen again. What happened in those 60 minutes has become one of the most expensive, most analyzed, and most unsolved missing child cases in modern European history. 17 years later, after tens of millions of euros spent, more than 8,000 reported sightings across nearly every continent, hundreds of suspects investigated, and a German prosecutor who publicly insists he knows who did it, there is still no body, no confession, and no conviction. Tonight, we walk through every dead end, every contradiction, and every uncomfortable question that police, journalists, and the McCann family themselves still cannot answer. Let's begin with the timeline, as the Portuguese police, the Polícia Judiciária, first reconstructed it. The McCanns and their friends, a group the British press would later nickname the Tapas 7, had developed a routine that week. They ate together each evening at the resort's tapas bar, while their children slept in nearby apartments. They took turns walking back to check on the kids roughly every 30 minutes. On the night of May 3rd, Jerry McCann checked on Madeleine and the twins at approximately 9:05 p.m. He later said the bedroom door was slightly more open than he remembered leaving it, but the children were sleeping peacefully. Around 9:15 p.m., a member of the group, Jane Tanner, reportedly walked past the apartment and claimed she saw a man carrying a child, possibly wrapped in a blanket or pajamas, moving away from the direction of the McCann apartment. That sighting would dominate the case for years. At 9:30 p.m., another friend, Matthew Oldfield, looked into the apartment but did not visually confirm Madeleine in her bed. He later said he saw the twins and assumed she was there. At approximately 10 p.m., Kate McCann entered the apartment to do her check. She found the bedroom window open, the shutters raised, and Madeleine gone. Her now famous scream, "They've taken her," was heard across the resort. The Portuguese police were called. The British press would be on the scene within 24 hours. The story would never leave them again. The initial investigation, run by Inspector Goncalo Amaral, was almost immediately compromised. Critics argue Portuguese police failed to seal the crime scene within the first golden hours. Tourists were allowed to walk through the apartment. Potential evidence was contaminated. No nationwide alert was issued in Portugal until the following morning. Border controls, including the route to Spain less than 2 hours away, were not tightened in time. By the time forensic teams arrived in force, the apartment had been touched, walked through, and disturbed by dozens of people. Amaral, however, came to a controversial conclusion. He did not believe Madeleine had been abducted. He believed she had died inside the apartment, possibly by accident, and that her parents had concealed her body. In 2008, he published a book titled The Truth of the Lie, repeating that theory in detail. The McCanns sued him, won a partial victory, lost on appeal, and the European Court of Human Rights eventually ruled in Amaral's favor on grounds of free expression. To this day in Portugal, that theory has supporters. In the United Kingdom, it is considered libelous and discredited. The truth is, no court has ever proven what happened in apartment 5A, and that ambiguity has poisoned the case ever since. In September 2007, 4 months after the disappearance, Portuguese police did something extraordinary. They named Kate and Jerry McCann as arguidos, formal suspects under Portuguese law. The basis was largely forensic. British cadaver dogs, brought in by the Metropolitan Police, had allegedly alerted to the scent of human remains in the McCann apartment, on a pair of Kate's trousers, on a stuffed toy belonging to Madeleine, and, most controversially, in the trunk of a rental car the McCanns hired 25 days after the disappearance. DNA samples were sent to the Forensic Science Service in Birmingham. The results came back ambiguous. Some markers matched Madeleine, others did not. The lab concluded the samples were too degraded and too mixed to be conclusive. In July 2008, the Portuguese Attorney General formally archived the case and lifted the arguido status from both parents and from another suspect, Robert Murat, a British man living near the resort who had volunteered as a translator and was briefly investigated. There was, the Attorney General wrote, insufficient evidence to charge anyone. The case was closed in Portugal, but it would not stay closed. In 2011, under pressure from then Prime Minister David Cameron, and at the personal request of the McCann family, Scotland Yard launched its own review. It was called Operation Grange. Initially funded at over £12 million, it would eventually consume more than $13 million of British taxpayer money over the following decade. Operation Grange reviewed 40,000 documents from the original Portuguese investigation. It identified hundreds of persons of interest. It traveled to Portugal repeatedly. It dug up scrubland in Praia da Luz in 2014, searching for any sign of Madeleine's remains. They found nothing. They investigated burglary gangs operating in the Algarve at the time, theorizing Madeleine may have surprised an intruder. That lead died too. They investigated a network of pedophiles who had been active in southern Portugal. Dead end. By 2020, after 9 years of work, Operation Grange had narrowed its active investigation to a small number of leads, but had made no arrests connected to the disappearance itself. And then, in June 2020, everything changed, when German prosecutors announced they had identified a prime suspect, a 43-year-old convicted sex offender named Christian Bruckner. Christian Bruckner is, by any measure, a deeply disturbing man. Born in Germany in 1976, he spent much of his adult life moving between Germany and Portugal. He lived in the Algarve region between 1995 and 2007. In May 2007, when Madeleine disappeared, Bruckner was living in a camper van in the very area surrounding Praia da Luz. He has a long criminal record, including the sexual abuse of children and the 2005 rape of a 72-year-old American woman in her apartment in Praia da Luz, a conviction he is currently serving prison time for in Germany. Phone records placed Bruckner in the immediate vicinity of the McCann apartment on the night Madeleine vanished. A phone call was received on his number near the Ocean Club Resort approximately 1 hour before the disappearance. Shortly after Madeleine was reported missing, Bruckner allegedly re-registered the license plate of his vehicle. German prosecutor Hans Christian Wolters announced publicly that he has no doubt Madeleine is dead and no doubt Bruckner killed her. But there is a crucial caveat. Wolters has admitted that the evidence against Bruckner, while strong circumstantially, is not yet sufficient to bring murder charges. In 2024, Bruckner stood trial in Germany, not for Madeleine, but for a series of other alleged sexual offenses committed in Portugal between 2000 and 2017. In October 2024, a German court acquitted him on all 5 counts in that trial, citing insufficient evidence. The acquittal was a serious blow to the investigation. Bruckner remains the prime suspect in the McCann case. He has denied any involvement. He is scheduled to be released from prison in the coming years, unless new charges are filed. And as of this recording, no such charges have been filed in connection with Madeleine. Let us talk about the leads that came and went, because the McCann case has generated more false leads than possibly any other missing person investigation in history. There was the sighting in Morocco in 2007, where a Spanish tourist photographed what appeared to be a blonde girl being carried by a local woman. The girl turned out to be the woman's own daughter. There was Murat, the translator, whose home was searched twice and who was eventually exonerated and paid substantial damages by British newspapers that had defamed him. There were sightings in Belgium, in Australia, in New Zealand, in India, in Bosnia, in Sweden, in the United States. Tens of thousands of tips. A pedophile ring in Belgium was investigated. A British woman who believed she was Madeleine, calling herself Julia Wendell, gained millions of followers on social media in 2023, before DNA testing definitively proved she was not Madeleine McCann. Every few years, a new theory emerges. A new suspect surfaces, a new tabloid headline screams a breakthrough, and every time, the lead collapses. There is a psychological term for this, the missing white girl syndrome, the phenomenon by which certain disappearances generate global media obsession while thousands of others fade into silence. Madeleine McCann's case is the modern archetype. Her image, those distinctive eyes with a coloboma in the right iris, has become one of the most recognized photographs in the world. And then there are the contradictions that have never been fully resolved, the questions that linger no matter which theory you prefer. Why did the cadaver dogs alert in the apartment and the rental car if no body was ever there? Defenders of the McCanns point out that cadaver dogs can produce false positives. They are not admissible as conclusive evidence in most jurisdictions. But skeptics ask why two separate, highly trained dogs alerted in the same locations. Why did Kate McCann initially refuse to answer 48 questions put to her by Portuguese police in 2007? Her lawyers said she was advised the questions were designed to entrap her. Skeptics see it differently. Why has no body ever been found despite 17 years of searching and a confessed obsession by German investigators? Bruckner's defenders argue this is because he is innocent. Prosecutors argue it is because he is meticulous. Why did Jane Tanner's sighting of the man carrying a child, the so-called Bundleman sighting, change in detail over multiple interviews? And was she even in the right location at the right time? Operation Grange eventually concluded that the man she saw was likely an innocent British tourist carrying his own child home from the creche. The most iconic eyewitness account in the entire case may have been a complete misidentification. The McCann family themselves have endured what can only be described as a form of public trial without end. They have been accused, vindicated, accused again. They have lost their daughter, and in many ways, their privacy and their right to grieve in peace. Kate McCann published a memoir in 2011 simply titled Madeleine, in which she described the unbearable years of waiting, the cruelty of internet conspiracy theorists, the moments of false hope, and her refusal to give up. Jerry McCann has continued to campaign for missing children's rights across Europe. The twins, Sean and Amelie, are now teenagers. They were 2 years old when their sister vanished. They have grown up entirely in her shadow. The McCanns have stated repeatedly that they will not give up hope while there is no proof of her death. The German prosecutor's statement that Madeleine is dead is, to them, not evidence. It is one man's opinion, however senior. In 2023, Portuguese police, working with German investigators, drained a reservoir near Silves in the Algarve, a location reportedly mentioned by Bruckner in conversations with associates. They found nothing of evidentiary value. In 2024, Operation Grange's funding was extended yet again, with British police acknowledging there are still a small number of active leads they are pursuing. They have not said what those leads are. So what do we make of 17 years? What does this case teach us about how investigations succeed and fail? First, it shows the catastrophic cost of those first golden hours. Forensic specialists agree that the contamination of apartment 5A in the first 48 hours likely destroyed evidence that could have solved this case in weeks. Second, it shows the limits of circumstantial evidence in the modern legal system. German prosecutors believe Bruckner is guilty. They cannot prove it beyond reasonable doubt. Without a body, without a confession, without forensic linkage, the bar for a murder conviction is extraordinarily high, and rightly so. Third, it shows how a missing child case can become a global mirror in which every viewer projects their own theory, their own suspicions, their own need for closure. The truth, whatever it is, has been buried under 17 years of speculation. There is one detail the German prosecutor admitted publicly only in 2024 that has shifted the conversation among investigators. Wolters confirmed that they possess evidence they have never made public. Evidence he described as showing Bruckner's interest in Madeleine specifically before her disappearance. He would not elaborate on what that evidence is. He said only that it exists, that it is in their files, and that they hope one day to use it in a courtroom. Whether that day will ever come remains, like so much in this case, unknown. Madeleine Beth McCann would be 21 years old today. She would, if alive, have voted, perhaps attended university, perhaps fallen in love. Instead, she remains forever 3 years old in the world's imagination, smiling in a tennis dress in the most reproduced missing child photograph in history. Somewhere, somebody knows what happened to her on the night of May 3rd, 2007. After 17 years, the question is no longer whether the truth exists. The question is whether it will ever come out. If this case haunted you the way it haunts every investigator who has touched it, subscribe to Dark Cases. We dig into the disappearances and unsolved crimes the world refused to forget. New investigations every week. Hit the bell so you do not miss the next one.